Is there not an entire section on this subject?
Yes, so it's unfair. I may have changed my mind about ether, for example.
Is your book for sale back?
Yes.
Have you ever asked God for forgiveness?
I'm not sure. I just go and try and do a better job.
Say it like you mean it. This is my Bible.
Yo, Trey.
What up?
I got something to say.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Let Me Tell You, episode 92. I'm your host, the Evangelical Norm. So we are a day late again. This is nothing to do with construction or anything. Intentionally, I put off a day. I was getting ready to record this podcast yesterday and started seeing stuff as they were coming up on different things. Bill Barr resigned from as Attorney General. And then there were things saying that Nevada had actually voted Trump in the Electoral College, and then that became Arizona had actually voted Trump. So I wanted to wait a day because the intention and the intended topic of the podcast from yesterday to today hasn't changed, but there were things that were coming out that I was like, okay, I want to see how this plays out before I sit down and talk about it. So apparently there was, so the question is now, yesterday, let's back up just a second and go to our, Civics 101 and see exactly where we stand in the process. So yesterday was the day that all of the states all the electors for the Electoral College had to place their votes and seal them and send them to the Senate. And they all have to arrive, I believe, by the 26th. We'll get there in a second. I've got a graphic for that we can take a look at, and we'll see exactly what day they have to be in the Senate. And then we'll talk about what is the next step. But so yesterday, I was going to talk a little bit about Bill Barr resigning. We'll talk about that next week and just see exactly, because I don't know a whole lot of details. Reality is that dude should have been fired months ago. We know now that Hunter Biden, Hunter himself came out and said, oh, I'm under investigation. And the Department of Justice has basically been hiding the fact that they've been investigating Hunter Biden for whatever issues, the laptop, selling influence, selling access to his father as the vice president, so on. There's so many things there that could have been influential in the election. So they were like, well, we just didn't want this to come out until after the election. Well, you now have a bunch of people who have voted for a man who may have been involved in his sons selling access to him to foreign dignitaries and whoever, who knows who has gotten through Hunter Biden, who has gotten access to Joe Biden and has gotten influence in that way. So there's a lot of stuff that should have been public knowledge that was not public knowledge. And for whatever the reason, Bill Barr should have just been fired. Trump should have fired him a long time ago. So we'll get more information on the whole Bill Barr thing, and then, potentially we'll talk about him sometime down the road. But today I want to talk about this whole issue that, and like I said, initially I saw the posts on Facebook and Twitter and stuff I thought it said Nevada had gone ahead and voted for Trump. But then I was seeing things that said Arizona had actually cast their electoral votes for Trump. The 11, Nevada had 6, Arizona had 7, or 11. But this is an old elector ballot. But this is what it looks like. This is what the state of Arizona will send to the Congress, and that will be counted, and those will be, at which point President-elect will be, what's the word I'm looking for? solidified, I guess is the word that I'm looking for. But apparently there was a group of Protect the Vote Arizona, some group that turned in a fake elector ballot, to somebody with the votes going to Trump. So here's my problem with this. Here is my problem. All right. We've just gone through weeks of, and some of it is valid, hundreds of affidavits of people alleging voter fraud and improprieties in different places and all kinds of things going on. So we're dealing with the thought that the Democrats are cheating to steal this election, and then someone's going to come in on the other side and try to cheat sorry, I forgot to turn down my phone, so I'm going to do that now. And essentially come in and cheat and turn in a fake ballot. How do you justify that? How do you deal with that? And how is it that the same people who are so outraged over Dominion voting machines and late ballots and stuff like that in Georgia and whatever aren't horrible outraged about this? Here is my thing, and this again, this is where Kurt Kennedy and I very much agree in the fact that hashtag stay balanced. You cannot complain about voter fraud on one side and then not complain about people submitting a fake electoral ballot. You cannot. And you can't try to justify this. You can't. This is cheating as much as anything else would be cheating. So my question is why aren't we seeing the same people that are so angry? And again, with the complaints of collusion and stuff like that with the 2016, why did we not see the same people who were crying out collusion and impeach and so on, who were angered by the fact that there were hundreds of eyewitness reports of impropriety in votes in other places? Or why were the people who were like, oh, well, whatever with collusion, not the same way? Do you see where I'm getting at? We sit and we constantly watch people in this nation flip-flop on all of these issues as long as it aligns with them. And that's why, amazingly enough, I somewhat agree with Beth Moore. I know it hurts to say that, on the tweet that she put out that got I want to say 19.3 responses, not many of them good, decrying Christian nationalism. Now, I have no problem with taking our Christianity, taking our faith, and letting it influence our politics. But as soon as we let our politics influence our faith, there's something wrong. So now if we're going to say Christian nationalism is the Trump cult, which it's there and it is real, these are people that the majority of them, if you really press them on what is the gospel and so on, a lot of them probably aren't really Christian. Trump's not Christian, right? The man himself said, I don't need to repent. I don't think like that. He's never asked forgiveness. He is not a Christian. Bottom line, period. And I would imagine a lot of the people who are willing to just bend over backwards for anything Trump. And again, I didn't vote for him based off of the locker room talk, which was not locker room talk. I didn't vote for that man. And I would not. And I didn't vote for him again this time. Go ahead and at me. I don't care. You can say whatever you want to say. Oh, it's your fault. Okay, sure, it's my fault. Utah still all went to Trump. It didn't make a difference how I voted. I didn't vote for Biden either, so there you go. But completely lost my train of thought. So, but I was willing to go say, okay, I can see the things that were good that this guy did, and I'm going to call out the things that were bad. And yes, there were a lot of policy issues and stuff like that he did that were good, but there were a lot that I did not agree with. This man is fully on board with LGBTQ rights. This man is fully on board with abortion and exceptions of incest and rape and health of the mother, which can really at this point mean anything. So he's not pro-choice. He is not pro-marriage. In either of these things, these things that we find as Christians that we are very much voting for. And he did not defund Planned Parenthood. I mean, he took about 10% away of what the government gives to them, but in no way did he ever completely defund Planned Parenthood, which he said he was going to do. So in those cases, I mean, I'm okay with the fact that I didn't vote for Trump. And again, we got through 8 years of Obama, and we got through 8 years of Clinton. We can get through 15 minutes of Biden and 4 years at least of Harris. And then we get another election coming up in 4 years. And if we can just put forward somebody who is not ridiculous, then we have a chance of leveling the playing field in this country, I guess, if we're going to say anything like that. But I was just blown out of my mind that there's the fact that somebody tried to cheat after all the hollering and hooting and hollering about voter fraud and everything else. That people tried to cheat in Arizona. I mean, why is it that so many people believe that the golden rule is do unto others as they have done unto you? I mean, I know it makes us look weak, and you know, we have to. It's almost like we're letting people walk all over us when we actually live out the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I mean, I don't want any other state putting forward a fake elector ballot. So why would I be okay with the people on my side, supposedly? And again, I'm not a Republican. I left the Republican Party when they nominated that dude, the orange man bad, right? I became an independent. I did not re-register as a Republican to vote this time around. I voted as an independent or unaffiliated. And depending on who the Republican Party puts forward as their standard bearer next time, it may determine whether or not I go back to the Republican Party. I don't think the Republican Party is going to last very long. I don't think the Democrat Party is going to be around very long either. That's a show for another day as well. So, I mean, it just, again, I just had to rant a little bit about the ridiculousness of this crap of some group, Protect the Vote Arizona, putting forward a fake certificate to try to cheat in the election, essentially, to try to convince people that Trump had won. So that brings us to the question, and it is where do we go next? What is it? What happens next, right? And so I got to move out of the way because I tried to blow this up as much as possible so people can read it. But here we are. We just passed step number 4. The certification, and all the electors get together and they vote. So December 23rd is the day that all of those ballots have to be turned into the Congress so they can have them, and they will be sealed until January 6th, which is when all those will be unsealed and all the votes will be counted. And that is the day that the president, well, potentially the day that the president-elect will be announced. So again, one, there's no constitutional office of the president-elect, even though Trump did it and Obama did it. Had their little podiums and stuff like that. And I complained both times with both of those dudes. So, again, staying consistent in my worldview. If I'm going to complain about Obama doing it, I'm going to complain about Trump doing it, and I'm going to complain again about Biden doing it, because there is no office of the president-elect. Okay? I mean, again, if that's the case, I can put myself in an office of the president-elect or the mayor-elect or whatever I want to be the elect of, and make my own office, right? So, but January 6th is when that'll be counted. Now, if there is a disputation, senators can object to the votes as they're pulled out and counted. So maybe senator in Georgia can object to the votes there, saying that they think there's fraud, and then there can be more debate and so on. And essentially what can happen is, I believe if it's for the president, if neither one gets to 270, it comes down to the House of Representatives, the 530, is it 535, however many, 538 members of the House that vote, and there has to be a majority vote for whoever is the president, and then the Senate votes for the vice president. So again, I mean, it gives you so many weird scenarios if it doesn't just play out according to the Electoral College, that we could literally end up with like a Trump-Harris or a Biden-Pence. You know, just weird things. But again, I'm fairly confident. Again, now I'm seeing all kinds of posts and stuff. My older brother posted something on my sister's page about some executive order 12838, or I don't know, some crazy crap that essentially, if the Department of Homeland Security or somebody comes in and says there's an issue here that, I don't know, martial law is going to be it's just ridiculous. It's over. It literally is over. Now, it doesn't mean I'm happy about it. I wish some of these allegations of voter fraud had been more looked into. I wish there was some closure on, I mean, literally hundreds of signed affidavits that were just essentially ignored in Georgia and Michigan and other places. I guess lists in Michigan of like 15,000 people that voted that were under the age of 18. This all should have been investigated, and Barr should have done the investigation. Another reason I think he should have been fired. But at this point, votes have been certified. Now, again, it doesn't mean I'm absolutely happy about it. I'm not excited about the potential of a Kamala Harris presidency, which, again, I'm going to double down on my prediction that Biden will be the president for as long as it takes for them to invoke the 25th Amendment and deem him unfit for office, unfit to perform the duties of president, and he's going to be out, Kamala's going to be in, and who knows who she's going to bring in as her VP. You know, AOC or Cory Booker or any Bernie Sanders, who knows what kind of crazy socialist wacko she's going to bring in. But we will not have a Joe Biden as president for very long. It's going to be Kamala Harris, right? And then that brings me to another thing, and this is just a sidetrack on that. So many people are coming up with the fact that trying to say she's not black because I think her mom is, I can't remember. One of her parents is Jamaican and one of her parents is Indian. And so they're saying, well, she's not really black. Well, I challenge you to pick out of a crowd of people of color, the Jamaican and the person who's African American, right? We in this country don't differentiate between the two. I mean, unless we know who they are and so on. But again, we look at people who are Jamaican and we call them black. So this whole thing, and I mean, I'm seeing it from people on the left and the right. And I'm like, this is the thing we're going to go after? I mean, can we not, for just a minute, stop and just, you know, I guess this is actually, you know, well, it's not. You know, can we not come back and judge someone on the content of their character, not the color of their skin? And, I mean, when we look at the content of her character, it's not great. There's enough there of the content of her character. Then we have to go about talking about, well, is she really black or not? I mean, that's just dumb. That is ridiculous. And that irritates me just as much as somebody turning in a false certificate of vote. So here's where we're at. Those are being sent in. All of them have to be to Congress by the 23rd. If not, Congress will get with those states and say, get them here now. And on the 6th, they get opened up, they counted, and then we have a official president-elect at that point. The Congress recognizes that, and then January 20th at noon, likely it's going to be Joe Biden is going to be inaugurated as the 46th president of the United States, and then rapidly turn around and turn that over to Kamala Harris. And so this is the last thing I want to just kind of talk about here. What the hell is wrong with our country and defining words and stuff like that? I mean, we literally, in the last 6 months, we have seen Merriam-Webster redefine certain terms because, like, preference and I can't remember, orientation, I think, was something that they redefined in order to appease the LGBTQ, AI, LMNOP, QRS, whatever group. And now we can't define person. How is it? What is wrong with media and journalism and just people in America that we cannot go? You cannot have two people as the person of the year. Now, can we call it persons? Whatever. But this is just, I mean, this is ridiculous. This is the stuff I have to, as I'm trying to teach my 4-year-old daughter, that I have to navigate around garbage like this. Because apparently anymore words don't have meaning. We just whatever words mean whatever we want them to mean, whenever we want them to mean it. And this is part of the problem with the downfall of American society. Is we just refuse to recognize words and their meanings and so on, or we're redefining them to appease this group and that group and whatever. And it's just it's freaking mind-boggling. You know, I mean, I don't know. I'm at an absolute loss that they would literally give you a person of the year and say Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, as if they're like interchangeable, or I mean, they're going to be pretty interchangeable come January 20th when the inauguration happens, and then immediately we turn around and we get Kamala. Or Kamala, I don't know how she pronounces her name. I try to pronounce it all possible ways in every podcast where I have to talk about her in order to cover my bases. But then again, I'm talking about the election, and I've lent some kind of legitimacy to the voter fraud stuff. So YouTube's probably going to just shut this video down anyway, you know, because we can't talk about election. We can't talk about. I mean, yeah. We can't talk about voter fraud, and we have two person of the year. I mean, it is mind-boggling. And again, I mean, we see just the ridiculous stuff on both sides. The conspiracy theories on both sides. You've got, you know, one side going, well, there's this and this is going to happen. And then the other side is like, well, Trump's never going to leave the White House, and we're going to have to go in there with the military and drag him out. And he's going to be holding on to, you know, the leg of the Resolute desk and, you know, whatever. No. Once this all goes down, when the electors are done and the votes are counted and January 6th comes and goes and January 20th comes and goes, Donald Trump is going to leave. He's not going to leave quietly, but he's not going to hold up and have to, you know, like Scarface, say hello to my little friend. You know, he's going to leave. Joe Biden will move in. And don't even get, there's another story that was out that don't even get me started about the pet psychic talking to Joe Biden's dogs, because this is the downfall of American civilization, that people will give more credence to the pet psychic that had a conversation with Joe Biden's dog over Scott Atlas and whether or not masks actually work or not. Right? And so, I mean, it's just, it is so far gone. I mean, at this point, I'm like, I'm kind of happy that I'm not fully in the post-mill camp yet. I mean, I'm slowly being dragged into post mill, but I'm not there yet, and I'm kind of glad because I'm really there's a part of me that's really hoping that somewhere along the line in the next little bit there's going to be a rapture. Jesus is coming back, and all this is going to go away because I can't imagine it going on any longer. Because it is seriously scary. We're no longer willing to define what a person is, whether it's singular, plural, or otherwise. We're no longer willing to define what a woman or a man or orientation or preference or any of those things are as they were. We have to redefine and ignore and, science. Yeah, no. Here again. See if I can just throw in a whole bunch of stuff to see if I can get my podcast canceled. You can't come at me with any kind of scientific evidence on COVID-19, masks, viral infection, asymptomatic spread, any of those things. If you're not willing to say Elliot Page, I'm willing to call her whatever name she wants to be called, but she is still a she. And if you're not willing to stand up and say Elliot Page is a woman, then don't come at me with anything else science, because you are the epitome of science denier. And that seems like a good place to finish it up. So we'll see what happens in the next week. We will see again. What comes next is Congress gets to open up ballots and count, and that'll be January 6th. So between now and then, we hit hopefully a lot more good football. The Broncos won this week. The University of Utah Utes won this week. Unfortunately, BYU won this week. That's the only bad thing. And the Jazz won. So sports are kind of the only thing giving me any kind of hope right now. I just miss the crowd in there. I'm not big on quiet sports. So there you go. Between now and January 6th, just focus on having a good time with your family. Enjoy the holidays. Let's not get too caught up in conspiracy theories or anything else. And as always, preach the gospel at all times. Use words. They're necessary. Until next week, Soli Deo Gloria.